Hi, everybody, and welcome to this week's edition of Straight Talk with Bren O'Brien and Tim Rowe from the Straight. Brought to you by our sponsors, Inglis and Darley. Today, the Inglis Easter Yearling Sale is in the spotlight. We talked to Widden's Antony Thompson about the sale, as well as to WinStar's Liam O'Rourke about Widden's new edition, Cogburn. We also talked to Inglis's Sebastian Hutch, looking forward to the big 2 days of selling here at the Riverside Stables. And Rose Hill remains firmly on the discussion around here at currently the Riverside Stables. Plenty of discussion around what's going on there. We'll give an update with what's happening, as well as floods in Queensland racing and the impacts of tariffs on Canadian racing. And in wagering, the Japanese wagering company at MIXI is in the spotlight. Okay, Tim, we're going to cover a few things here today, but talk to us about sort of the vibe around the sale. A lot of focus on Easter at the moment. What are your thoughts about what we'll see here over 2 days of selling?
Well, that was a very lengthy introduction. Thanks, Bren. No, I think, and Sebastian Hutch, we will be talking to, as you said. He's just walked in. I think it's going to be a solid sale. But this is the creme de la creme, I guess. The top of the 400 lots, 400 horses. The top 100 will take care of themselves. Big players, international players come out here. The Colts partnerships, the big Phillies investors. If they want to partake in the industry, this is where they play. Yes, multi-millions, of course, but certainly if you're a big investor, you're involved at Easter without question, and I'm sure we'll see that again on Sunday and Monday.
We didn't always have a stellar draft here. We had a lengthy chat with Antony Thompson. It was fantastic. Gave plenty of his time. He actually was more interested in talking about his new stallion edition, Cogburn. He introduced us to Liam O'Rourke from WinStar Farm. A really interesting chat, Tim, sort of about them Widden going back to the days of shuttling an American stallion here. It hasn't happened for a few years, and it's interesting to see their enthusiasm for this concept of bringing this very fast horse Cogburn out to Australia.
I guess I shouldn't say some studs. There can be a temptation for standing a stallion because you can, and you'll possibly make money out of that horse. I think Antony's very cognizant of the fact of standing Cogburn that he believes in the horse. That's why he's gone, you know what? Local stallions, colonial stallions, Northern Meteor and so forth, and obviously Zoostar at the moment has served Widden very, very well for 20 plus years, but he's genuine outcross stallion, speed, and importantly a turf horse. And as we hear from Antony and Liam, they believe that he will suit the Australian market and can leave an impression, and we'll find out in 3, 4, 5 years whether that's the case.
And here's what Liam and Antony had to say about Cogburn. So we're here at the Inglis Easter Yearling Sale, and we're lucky to have both Liam O'Rourke and from WinStar Farm and Antony Thompson from Widden with us. And Liam, we'll start off with you. Obviously, coming over here, there's an important reason why you're over here, and Widden's new star shuttle sire over here is Cogburn. Talk to us about him and I guess, what he brings to the Australian market.
Well, firstly, we're incredibly excited to be partnering with Antony and his team at Widden Stud to bring Cogburn to Australia. Just an incredibly fast horse. He did really incredible things that we don't see in the US as far as the speed on the turf by an incredibly popular sire, and not this time. So he had some really unique elements that we thought would set him apart, and it has in Kentucky. Plenty of good qualities that we thought would suit the Australian market. The speed, we thought he would suit the Australian breeders physically, and we were very pleased when Antony brought his group in November to the farm and got a look at him and really gave their stamp of approval, as this is the kind of horse that people would really like in Australia.
We like to think of ourselves as global racing aficionados in Australia, and we understand the form lines and the sire lines and that overseas. Not always the case. The Australian breeders do tend to stick to their own understanding. Has been successful over time. Talk us about his sire line and where he sits this horse in terms of profile in the American market.
So Not This Time is absolutely at the top of the market as far as commercial sires. He's had a wonderful start. We are big supporters of him. We felt that we found the Not This Time that truly had speed. That was the most important factor for us. So as you can see in the sales results, topping Saratoga, the brilliant horses that he had in September, Keeneland September, he's really a top class stallion in the US.
Yeah. And just in terms of what is kind of interesting, we pride ourselves in Australia in our speed horses, right? And the horses that are, and so he comes into a market which is quite competitive for elite sprinters, Cogburn. How do you feel like he stands up alongside that? Where does he sit alongside that? If you're trying to compare him to, you think about, what we like to see in Australia and the type of horse we like to see. Do you think he fits that mold?
Yeah, absolutely. I think a couple of things. I think his Troy at Saratoga in 2023, when he beat both Caravel and No Balls, the previous two winners of the Breeders' Cup Sprint and, turf sprint champions in the U.S., and then to come back following year in the Jaipur, 59 and change over 5.5 is just something that you kind of see it and you go, well, that couldn't be right. And in fact, it was. And, he franked that for him at Kentucky Downs again. So I think, the class and the speed is all there for him.
Talk to us about what's the vibe in the American market at the moment, where things are at. We sort of see it from afar. We see some fairly positive signs in terms of some of the investment there. Probably some of the similar challenges what we see into Australia across the full depth of the market, particularly the lower end of the market. Is that sort of a reasonable assessment, do you think, of where things are at? And sort of, how are you guys sort of addressing that from WinStar's perspective and sort of attacking and trying to get a hold of the market at the moment?
Yeah, I mean, it's a very polarized stallion market. It's a very polarized yearling market. If you have what they, the perceived quality, I mean, you really get rewarded. This is a stallion that we got tremendously rewarded by in our first year. We got absolutely overwhelmed in the interest in him and set him up to breed, a high number of mares this year, a high quality group of mares this year.
For the last 20 years at least, Widden successfully has built the roster on Colonial Stallions, Zoostar and Northern Meteor before him and so forth. What made you go back to the shuttle market with, I guess you had Anabar and Belong to Me many years ago? What decided to go back to that well?
This horse, it wasn't I wasn't necessarily looking for a shuttle horse. I just saw Cogburn and that wow factor, you can't ignore it, I didn't wake up one day and say, all of a sudden I need a shuttle horse. It's a bit like Anabar. When I saw Anabar, he was a horse that I thought, well, could get him in Australia, it'd be epic. And he made a really big impact. And he was, for a horse that didn't shuttle for that long and never served that many mares down here, Anabar's a fantastic influence and left a real mark. And Belong to Me was another nice horse that did his job. But this horse is that real wow about him. There's that X factor and just that explosive speed. And you can't beat speed from where I sit. So I don't mind where they come from, where they're that fast. You just got to have them.
And the turf factor, the fact that he did do it on turf as opposed to dirt, how important was that?
Oh, yeah, I think that's vital. It is a difference, and it's a different makeup and a different type of horse. And the guys in America will tell you that they're just dirt horses. And Cogburn was effective on the dirt, but when they switched him to turf, it was right in his wheelhouse. So it wasn't that he was good on the dirt, but man, he was dynamite on the turf. And I think that's a tick for him. Not this time, gets both turf and dirt horses, but he's had a Group 1 winner, Royal Ascot. So that's kind of something that says that'll suit us.
Terrific. All right, let's move on to Easter. Obviously, it's big, important time of year. It's a significant sale. I mean, what are your expectations heading into this week? And where do things sit with you? Where's your confidence at? Where's the market at? Where's the quality of your stock at? Talk us through that.
Well, it's always a big sale, and it's a very important sale for not just ourselves, but the whole industry. It's great to see so many internationals down here. And yeah, I guess it's time to showcase Australian racing, Australian breeding. So we're excited by that. Excited by, obviously, Saturday on a good track at Randwick for the first day of the championships. Hasn't happened for a while. So that's something to really look forward to. And the horses I've got to sell, we're really excited about what we've got to offer and quite proud of the draft we're presenting and the way they look and the way they're being received. I guess the market's the market. It's not for me to change it, but everything, all our indicators, it's going to be a very good sale. There's all the right people here. Sebastian and his team have done a very good job. I don't think, they would have missed anyone. They've really gone out to get as many buyers here as possible at every level. And we're seeing some, really busy days. First day we did 40 cards. Yesterday we did 55. Today we've been really, really strong. And yeah, people are starting to, get through their look, full draft and full looks, and then they're coming back on their seconds now. So I think we're in really good shape. And yeah, I can't wait to kick off Sunday.
And part of that draft is Obviously, WinStar's fighting it out for potentially his first general size premiership this year with up against Pride of Dubai at the moment. But you've got the brother to Timing's Everything and the brother to Schwartz and three-quarter brother to Zoo Gotcha's going through Easter. So I'm sure they'll be sought after, highly sought after.
Yeah, I mean, I've got 8 WinStars, so you're going to be busy, but they're really lovely horses, as you said. The full brother to Schwartz, recent Group 1 winner, which is fantastic. Three-quarter sister to Zoo Gotcha, the actuary, and she's a star. Lot 217 has been one of the most admired and talked about fillies on the complex, I'm sure. And yeah, I mean, she's just something where you sort of, when you do your matings and when you're buying mares and when you sort of look at what you're doing, you dream of getting a filly like that, and she is just special. So that's really exciting and something pretty cool. And with Zoo Gotcha just being announced at the Magic Millions mare sale yesterday, timing's very current there. She's going to make an awful lot of money, and here's a filly that's closely related to her. Got a full sister to a Climbing Star who we sold as well, and out of Bryony, and she's another, gorgeous filly, full sister to a Group 1 winner. And of course, Climbing Star goes to the Magic Millions mare sale as well. So yeah, those, you go through my WinStar colts, there's a beautiful lineup of colts there. The Lady Lupino, the Fratian, the 3 two-darn hot colts, I think are all really nice colts. Add to that, a Schnitzel colt out of Madame Rouge. I've got a Gunrunner colt, a Wooden Basset colt, really something for everyone. A Vinny filly, Extreme Choice filly. So yeah, whichever way you want to look, there's some really serious bloodstock there, and not just on paper. They look good in that green book, but they look better when you see them here at Riverside.
On Zoo Gotcha, so it was a filly. There was talk maybe there was some breeders in that syndicate or some big breeders that may have tried to keep her, or you're going to send it back to Widden and breed with her. Was that a consideration, or was she just too valuable to not put to market, I guess?
Well, that was certainly my plan. I would have loved to have done that, and I, first and foremost, from my own point of view, would love her to come back to Widden, if it's a breeding stock. Unfortunately, not. When Chris bought her, he put his clients into it, and Robert Anderson and I, who bred her, stayed in for a small share. So we're minor shareholders, and whilst I was hoping to do that and offered to buy anyone out who wanted to get out, I guess the fairest way and the wish of the syndicate was to put her up for public auction, and if we want to buy back, we can, and if someone else wants to buy her, they can as well. So she's there for sale. Unfortunately, I don't think I'll be able to buy her in the public arena. I'd love to be able to, but she's probably, I'd say, the best mare to go to auction in Australia this year from what I'm looking at. And certainly you might say they're rose-coloured glasses, but I'm happy to have that discussion with anyone. For me, she's just it and a bit. Her profile, her pedigree, her physical, she certainly has never been taxed, and Chris has looked after her beautifully. So I think, for any breeder, when they see her, that would be the sort of mare they would love to take home and put in their paddock. So, I hope I can buy, but good luck to whoever does. And I'm sure, she will command a lot of excitement through the ring.
Tim, out of that also of the discussion at the back end there about Zoo Gotcha and what she might sell for. So obviously a highly desirable prospect going to be sold there as well. So plenty of news about that and plenty of intrigue about that at the moment. So I think there's we're talking yearling sales, but there's always that interest in the broodmare sales, isn't there?
For sure. Look, obviously Bella Nipotina is going to be sold at the chairman's sale. Big ticket item, but arguably Zoo Gotcha, 5-year-old mare, 3-time Group 1 winner with a huge pedigree, could won't say definitely, but could sell for more than Bella Nipotina and possibly top the Australasian mare sales this year. I'd probably say that's a safe bet, really. There was talk, and Antony alluded to it, that he wanted to keep her at Widden, but will put her on the open market, and it'll be all the major players, I'm sure, will certainly be inspecting her and probably bidding on it to what level, what multi-million-dollar level. We're not sure. We'll find out on the day.
This is one side just for a brief moment, Tim, because I want to also go to another part of our interview with Antony around about the new CEO of Ozhorse and TBA, Andrew Hall-Lacey. Interesting chat with Antony. He was very open about what they were looking for with this new CEO and this new appointment, a key appointment in the industry. And as you'll hear here, and he was quite expansive about what he thought Andrew could bring into the role. And you wear a few different hats, including chairman at Boshorse. Obviously, you've had a change of executive there at the moment. Andrew Lacey starts in the role in June. I mean, talk us through that process. Obviously, key to get the right person to come into that role. It is an important role. It's a complex role with both TVA and Oz Health. You need to have the right skill set. Obviously, you feel like you've selected the right person. But talk us through Andrew's skill sets and talk us through what do you think that he brings to that role that can help drive that organisation forward?
First and foremost, Andrew's passionate, and he loves racing, and he's passionate about the industry. And that was probably, we interviewed some outstanding candidates. We had a really good list of applicants, but his passion and his energy was the one thing that really got me excited. There were probably candidates who could have been seen as a safer set of hands, guys who have probably been there, done that, and they're at this stage of their life where they've been on big wages and big positions, and this was a bit of a step down. For Andrew, he's done a lot in the media and television space, but this is a step up. But his energy and passion, I think, was certainly from the recruitment process was one that they were looking at. He's going to bring a new, fresh look at everything we've been doing, which is good. I think it's a good time to do that. Obviously, working with Tom Riley for the last 10 years, Ozhorse certainly, and I think the guys at TVA would say that Tom did a fantastic job. He came in as that young guy with the same, energy that Andrew brings and the same fresh eyes from a bit outside the industry, and looked at it and said, as an industry, a massive industry that employs a lot of people, we don't have a good enough association and relationship with government, and Tom made that a priority, and he's done great work in that space. Tom said we're not doing enough about education and training, and we've implemented some great stuff with Cecilia and now Maddie in that space. So we took on a lot of new initiatives whilst continuing a lot of the other sort of work that Ozhorse TBA were doing, kind of reinvigorated, refreshing our marketing, come up with some really good angles and really good stuff, and we're always looking to do that. So I think now's the time for Andrew to step in and do the same, and maybe have a look at, some of the things in the industry and say, where do we need to shift our focus to, or what's something we can do differently or do better or change up a bit. So I think it's a bit of a time for reset. Certainly from the board, we'd like to take a bit of a reset and look at everything Ozhorse is doing and how it's doing it, why it's doing it, and what it could do better. I think TBA is in the same boat. I said to Andrew, his first job he's got is to fix the patent, and if he does that, he'll be right for a little while.
I was going to say, there's plenty of things to work on in the industry at the moment. It does seem a time of quite a lot of flux within the industry across the board, doesn't it, Andy? I mean, it is an interesting time for you to be coming to that role because, as you say, that it's fresh into that role. But there's a lot of things in the industry at the moment that are fairly hot issues that sort of need some leadership direction on.
Yeah, I mean, there's never a dull day in this industry. As you guys know at the Straight, you're never short of a story. And at the moment, there seems to be, it's quickly evolving space and the stories and the challenges. But, we do have so many things going right. We do have such a fantastic, strong industry. So I think whilst, yes, there's always issues, there's always challenges, we've got so much positive stuff happening. We can't forget that. And we need to build on the great work we've done. We need to build on all the success we're having. And yeah, I think it's a time to come together and really, try to work as an industry as close as we can with all the different, participants, all the different organisations. And I think with Andrew in that chair, one of his main charters will be to try and, improve working relationships and get better outcomes for everyone. So we're looking, to Andrew to come in and try and build on that good work Tom's done and try and, work a bit broader with the PRAs and with all the other participants. Obviously, he's worked closely with all the PRAs through the media stuff, Channel 7, with, I think they do 48 Saturdays a year right around Australia. So He's done the Perth Carnival, he's worked with the BRC and Queensland Racing as much as he has with, the VRC or Racing New South Wales. So he's already got a pretty good idea of that landscape, and hopefully those relationships can just help us as an industry.
Inglis Easter Yearling Sale is only a couple of days away. To be staged on April 6th and 7th at Riverside Stables in Sydney, the Easter Sale has featured 37 future Group 1 winners since 2018. 9 of those could have been purchased for $200,000 or less. It's also the source of current 3-year-old stars, Lady Shenandoah, Switzerland, Autumn Glow and Growing Empire. With 421 yearlings catalogued, including 228 that are either the progeny of stakes winners or siblings to stakes winners, there's no shortage of quality options. Go to inglis.com.au to check out the catalogue. And joining us is Inglis Bloodstock CEO, Sebastian Hutch. Sebastian, you're a regular on this program now. You've been in here a few times on Straight Talk. It's great to have you on here. It's an exciting time of year. You're a little bit of nerves ahead of the Easter sale, or where do things feel?
Nervous ahead of this. This is my second time on, and you've really built it up for me. I'm nervous ahead of the sale, but I'm paid to be nervous. It's my prerogative to be nervous. I think if I was comfortable or complacent during those things, the vendors wouldn't be happy. So I think the vendors have me exactly where they want me.
Yeah.
How are you? You've done all the work getting the catalogue here, but the horses actually arriving. Some I'm sure you have seen recently, but you would have canvassed to get them in August, September last year. Horses develop at different rates. How are they looking now?
Yeah, please. I mean, as you say, we see most of these horses in August and September. The majority of whom we won't have seen again until the last 2-3 weeks or even the last week. It's a collaborative process putting the catalogue together. You're working with vendors trying to identify what the suitable horses are. So, ultimately there's generally agreement between us and the vendor as to what the suitable horses are. So, you come here not expecting too many great surprises. Ultimately, you put the horse in the catalogue because you and the vendor believe that they're going to be spot on come the 1st of April. And certainly it feels like that's materialised to be the case in terms of most of the horses. You take a speculative view of a few of them and get here and can be very pleasantly surprised. Some horses just do extraordinarily well. And as you'll have alluded through various podcasts, various editions of the newsletter, the profile of stallions changes so much. You talk about these young horses. You look at that crop of Wooden Bassett, Farn and Bivouac and Old-Acre, and they're quite well represented in the sale. But just the appetite for the progeny of those stallions is through the roof. You look at Too Darn Hot with his third crop yearlings. He's really in the zone, so to speak. So again, when considering the profile or the progeny of those stallions back in July and August, did we anticipate we'd be here with any of them? No, maybe not, but it's worked out well that we are.
Bloodstock's one thing. People safe buying benches another thing. Have you got all the people you need to, or you want to get here right now over the next couple of days to be able to bid and to put their hand up and make an impression in the sale?
I think it's fair to say you'll never meet somebody who works in an auction house that says we've got enough buyers. Right? You never have enough buyers. You always want more. There's an element of greed to it. But we're pleased with the level of attendance at the sale, the level of engagement with the sale. We have a slightly smaller catalogue this year. So trying to meet the benchmarks that are likely to be considered to be acceptable by the market will be different to what they would have been in past years with more horses in the catalogue. But yeah, we're pleased. I mean, people seem genuinely excited to be here. We've been very lucky with the weather. It's been very pleasant moving the horses over the last 3 days. And the feedback on the horses in general has been hugely positive. But again, we stress this time and time again when talking about this sale, that the expensive horses get all the headlines, but really, for the people who do the work, look at all the horses, keep their lists long, there's a lot of value to be found in the sale because, ultimately only a small percentage of the horses make a lot of money, and a lot of the horses in the catalogue end up getting very valuable.
Brett Fielding alluded or told us last week on this podcast that some of the internationals that were going to be active, Craig Ramsey, his South African agent and so forth. But what about the local trainers that maybe have to buy on spec to a degree, or the syndicators that will be active in that $0 to $200,000 range, I guess? There are many of those expressing interest at this stage and their level of appetite.
I think people want to buy quality stock, so they consider the sale on the basis that this is the strongest consolidation of quality stock of any sale in the Southern Hemisphere. And as a consequence, they'll all have a look at the catalogue and all have a look at horses and all try and see what opportunities there are there to buy. it's all very price sensitive. Like I've never used the word discerning so frequently in such a short space of time as what I have over the last 6 months. But like, it's a discerning marketplace. People have been more selective with how they've gone about identifying their horses, which is understandable. People being a little bit more conscientious, a little bit more conservative. But I think people get excited at this sale and they walk out, they see horses they really like. We try and work with the vendors to consolidate a list of the horses that we think will fall into the $0 to $200,000 bracket, just to try and help people who are shopping part of the market to make sure that they're looking at right horses for their budget. That's been a very positive thing for sale for a number of years, and expected to be a big help to a lot of people this year.
Sebastian, all the best. It's obviously a big time of year, so it's probably the most focus on English throughout the year, and it sounds like everything's in place for a successful couple of days. But in the sales ring, we never know what might happen. Bill, we had extraordinary times last year. This year, you never know what might happen.
And we have a lot of work to do still. I mean, what is it till the start of the sale? We're 2 days out from the start of the sale. There's still a lot of work to do. But at the same time, I think it's encouraging to be in the position we're in at this point. Hopefully we can continue to engage more buyers and say, hope we get some luck with vetting and just how the cards fall. And if that's the case, with a bit of luck, we'll send more people home.
Is there any neck on the line, I guess, couple of
absolutely
highlight that might, Winks Philly last year,
I'm very grateful to the support of all the vendors across the whole catalog. I'm hoping that everybody has a horse that sells, or multiple horses that sell really well. I have horses that we split inspections up through the spring, and we try and keep it relatively consistent in terms of who goes to what farms year after year. So you develop sort of a perspective on how certain farms do different things, and inevitably you develop an affinity or a preference for certain horses that you've seen or that someone's told you is a nice horse. And like, there are certain horses that I came here looking forward to seeing because they were beautiful horses in the spring, and it's exciting to see them again. And like, I suppose a couple of horses I'm really excited about putting through the sale because it was part of a conscientious effort on the part of relationship with that vendor or those vendors to get those horses to the sale. These had alternative options, and you're just hoping that things play out in a manner that has everybody happy. And at this stage, that looks very promising, but we won't take it for granted.
All the best, Sebastian.
Appreciate it. Cheers. Thank you. Nice to have been between the two of you.
Tim, we're here at the Riverside Stables, as we said, and all of the talk this morning was around about the new management of Yulong. Jun Zhang, less than a week after Vin Cox's departure. I guess maybe not completely surprising, but it seems like they're pretty keen to move on from the Vin era and sort of begin their own path with Jun at the helm.
Well, Zhang Yisheng, since he's started Yulong sort of more than a decade ago, and he's just got bigger year after year, his family has been an integral part of the business, I guess, not front and centre, certainly from a media perspective. There's been Vin most recently and Sam Fairgrave, who's still there, of course, and an integral part of the team. But in terms of management decisions, there's been Jung and Harris as well, another son-in-law that have been there. You'd see them at the races, you see them at sales like this, just not, I guess, certainly been outwardly making the decisions. But obviously, I think you'll see more and more of that where he's brought it in-house and looking at his family, they've learnt the ropes, I guess, Jun and Harris and so forth. I guess he feels now's the right time to give them that responsibility to Jun to lead the way.
Yeah, and they're absolutely flying from a racing perspective. They've had 11 Group 1 wins this season already, and more to come probably this weekend via Sistina and a whole bunch of other horses. Trusty Treasure Moment winning the other day. They just extraordinarily formed the bottle green of Yulong. We move quickly on to Bren Hill. We'll skip through this one relatively quickly, Tim, because it is one of the biggest issues in racing, but it gets talked about a lot. But you get the feeling that we're still going to be, the controversies, the ups and downs, the ins and outs, it's going to be rolling right through to May 12th, the delayed date for that vote, isn't it?
Well, a week ago we said we were sick of it and we'd move on very quickly because we'd hopefully today, Thursday, we would have got at least some sort of resolution. That hasn't happened, as you just alluded to. It's been pushed back to 12th of May. It's more, Peter McGorrin's been in the media again this week, so just concerned about the health of racing. I don't do a lot of research for this podcast, as you know, Bren, but I did do some. And, I think he's being a bit, obviously the ATC's got their financial issues, but in terms of the industry-wide thing, there's still money there. Yes, wagering's down, but I think Racing New South Wales from wagering revenue 2024 had, more than $200 million plus more than they did in 2019. It's just how that money is distributed, and we can argue all day which way, best way for that to go forward. But in terms of doomsaying the industry is a bit over the top, I think at the moment we should be still pretty happy with the way it's going. Can get better, but still plenty of money around to be won, lost, and invested.
Yeah, exactly right. And that, it does play into that concept of why about tracks and the racial issue about selling Rose Hill. And Rose Hill got criticised last week about not being handled a bit of rain. I tell you, I talk about a bit of rain. There's plenty of rain in Queensland at the moment. Out that Queensland, we've had, I think, about 14 tracks up there, or maybe not quite that many, seriously impacted by the outback floods. There's a story about Maxwellton in 350 km from Mount Isa having its local meeting washed out this weekend. We sort of forget when we go to these big race meetings at Flemington or Rose Hill or Randwick and these big events that we have. Racing's heartbeats in those outback communities, isn't it? You and I both grew up in country towns. Loved our races, loved our picnic races, loved going to those things. That's where the passion is developed from. And hopefully things will recover well in that part of the world. But we can't forget about those people who, those communities who turn up year on year to go to their cup meetings and love to celebrate and love to have a bet and watch their horses and enjoy that aspect of the game.
Absolutely. So social, once a year social event. All the clubs are run by volunteers. Put in hundreds of hours and working bees to get tracks ready. So it's just unfortunate that I think I did hear on the news the other night that an area twice the size of Victoria is underwater in Queensland at the moment. So it's just phenomenal how much rain and water there is with the flood damage. And that article that Warwick Barr did, still Racing Queensland still haven't got a handle on quite what the damage is yet, because the people are flooded in and can't get to the tracks, or they've got other priorities, understandably, to work out before they worry about their once a year race club.
And you want to talk about people who love their horses and the heart and soul of racing, that's where it's at. There's another story there I urge you to check out this week about racing in Canada. The Canadian champion Moira debuts in Randwick on Saturday. It'll be fascinating to see how she goes. She's Breeders' Cup winner, absolute champion, superstar, probably the best horse to come out of Canada for a generation. But Canadian racing's in a bit of a tough spot at the moment, and a lot of it's to do with some of the issues they've got with the states and tariffs and all that type of stuff. Look, it's quite a complex thing. I urge you to check out Matt Stewart's story, and I think we'll see more about this coming forward in the future. So now it's time for our daily start of the week. Here's a quick look at Animo. His first two books reflect his champion status. In those first two seasons, he's covered 19 Group 1 winners, 82 Group winners, 127 Stakes winners, and 186 black type performers. But it doesn't stop there. He's also covered the dams at 18 Group 1 winners, 42 Group winners, and 57 Stakes winners. And to top it off, Godolphin has sent him 40 of their best mares over those two seasons. Safe to say, Animo is an easy choice. All right, finally in the wagering landscape, Tim, we have a story here about MIXI, the Japanese company. And why I wanted to bring them to a highlight was because they're involved quite significantly in the takeover bid for PointsBet. PointsBet hold around about 5% of the market. MIXI already have a presence in Australia through BetM, a relatively minor player in the market, but still, nonetheless. I think it's very easy for people to write off and sit there and go, oh, who's this Japanese company coming in? And sports betting's not that big in Japan, and what would they understand about wagering in Australia? I think if you look at that article, you realise how big sports betting is, even though they only bet primarily on four sports: horse racing, boat racing, sort of a motocross sort of speedway, and cycling, Kieran. So, but the amount of money spent across that is massive legally. There's probably another larger unregulated market there as well. But MIXI has sort of been at the heart of this. They've got a product called Tipstar, which is sort of like a free to use, I don't know, it's sort of hard to explain, social, driving social engagement. They're a social media company at heart. They want to bring that to Australia and bring that. Now, we might be a bit cynical about it or whatever, but we've got to think about the impact that the corporate betting and corporate bookmakers made on the Australian landscape over the last 15 to 20 years. And I don't think, we can underestimate the impact that a company like MIXI could make, and also what they could learn and possibly take back to Japan if the market gets less regulated there, I suppose, and becomes a lot more straightforward. But I think it's I urge people to have a look at it and work through that story, because there's a bit there into what we talk about wagering challenges and whatever in Australia. Maybe some of the answers we need to find are overseas. All right. Thanks for joining us on Straight Talk, brought to you, of course, by our sponsors, Darley and Inglis. Don't forget to give us a rating wherever you are listening to our podcast, be it on Apple, Spotify, Podbean, variety of places. YouTube, you can check it all out. You can watch us live, not live, but watch us in the actually watch us here at the Riverside Stables as you are now, and there's a variety of options there. Give us a star and leave us a comment. Send us an email to editor@thestraight.com.au and let us know what you think and anything you want us to talk about. We'll talk to you over the next few days. We're probably planning to do a couple of audio podcasts in the wake of the 2 days of the Easter sale, so we'll talk to you through them.